We live in a generation of world changers. We live in a generation in which people have changed forever the way we think about culture, the way we think about technology, the way we think about religion, the way we think about the world around us. Think of the achievements just in our lifetime of people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. Think about the great things that they've done and the way they've changed the way people think. And then think about the fact that most of them just kind of came from obscurity, humble people. No one really great, but that they just had a belief that the skills they had, the gifts they had, the calling that they had for life, the calling that they had for ministry, the calling that they had to bless humanity with what they have and who they are, was just uppermost in their lives. Think about that now when you look at just a little shepherd man, a little shepherd man who used to be a prince of Egypt, but now he's hiding out in the desert called Moses. And God comes to him while he's hiding out in the desert, and God says to him in chapter 3 of Exodus, Moses, I need you. I need you to rescue a whole nation of people. And Moses begins to argue with God. You know the story. He argues with God and argues with God and argues with God about his insufficiencies, about his personal low self-esteem, about the fact that he can't speak right. He gives him a whole bunch of arguments. Then the Lord asks him a simple question. He says, Moses, what's in your hand? What's in your hand? Moses says, a stick. He says, throw the stick down, Moses. And when Moses threw the stick down, the very nature of the stick changed. Its core molecular structure just changed and it became a snake. And then he says, touch it again, pick it up again. He picked it up and it became a stick. I've always loved that statement, what's in your hands? Because for the past 16, nearly 17 years of ministry now, as I've done ministry around the world, as I've interacted with people around the world who have done miraculous things for God, just crazy things for God and for his kingdom, it's always come down to them answering that question, what's in your hand? What's in your hand? Because it's clear to me now that there is no one method that God will use in order to draw people to him. There's no one size fits all. Because we are complex as human beings. Our lives are different as human beings. We see in black and white, we see in gray, and we just see in technicolor as human beings. And that's all right with God, because God can reach us in all of those areas. So what's in your hands? Because I've worked with people who said all they had in their hand was a basketball. And I've traveled around the world with them now, and we've reached thousands of people. I worked with a lady who said all I have in my hand is a front room and pizza. And for 7 years, we ran a small group in her front room, and we've baptized some of the greatest leaders that are now in the London church out of her front room. All she had in her hand was just front room and pizza. I've baptized guys that have said, all I have in my hand is just simply the ability just to write poetry. And I've carried them all over the world with me, reciting poetry. I mean, what is in your hand? Because all God is saying is throw it down. Throw it down. I worked with a girl in South Africa, and all she had was diabetes. She came with us to do puppet ministry. She had a really bad episode with the diabetes, ended up in a hospital. And she said to me in reflection, you know, Eddie, if I never would have ended up in hospital, I never would have been able to tell these kids about Jesus Christ. Jesus asked her, what do you have in your hand? She said, Lord, all I've got is just diabetes. He said, it's all right, girl, throw it down. And she walked around with her insulin drip, just sitting on the beds of people, talking to them about Jesus Christ. So what do you have in your hand? And he asked that question because he said to Moses, before he asked him what he had in his hand, he says, Moses, I have seen the struggles of people. I have heard their cries. I know their sufferings. I have come down. So what's in your hand? Because God is asking you, because he's already worked out what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. He just wants to know, are you going to be the one to go for him? Because he's already worked out what he's going to do. He's been God a long time. He knows what he's doing. So the question for you is, and the question for me is, what's in your hand?